All right, we're gonna take a few minutes for questions for our last four speakers. So if you could all turn your cameras back on, so you're ready to be put on the spot. And actually, I'm gonna turn the spotlight to someone not on camera right now to answer this first question. So Barbara Cohen, if you see in the chat, there's a question about Lunar Flashlight. Can you provide us a really quick update on Lunar Flashlight and its potential ride to the moon?
Yes, hello, this is Barbara. Lunar Flashlight is, most of you heard, missed the integration window for the SLS to get buttoned up into the SLS, but we are now co-manifested on the Falcon 9 that Intuitive Machines 1 is going to be using for their Eclipse mission.
Fantastic. Very exciting. Thanks for that update, Barbara. All right, Brad, the spotlight turns to you. Related to the to-be-determined 2026 PRISM opportunity, in addition to potentially choosing the landing site, could the proposal teams have input into the timing of the landing, for example, to target a lunar eclipse?
That's a great question, and clearly in the call we will, be putting certain, I won't say limitations, bounds on what can and can't be asked for, such as mass, landing slope, etc., based on what we currently know about providers' capabilities. That is a fascinating question that you ask, and I would say that we'll keep that in mind as we're putting the call together. That this is an important or something that's of interest to the community as a capability. We're still clearly looking to get our first successful CLIPS landing under our belt. And so as we start getting more and more confidence, I think having targeted times could possibly be in the option space. But at this time, I can't commit that that's going to be in PRISM 3.
Jake, I think this next one is for you. What are the plans for the Artemis base camp, and how will science be integrated into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the base camp is a concept that would be a little bit farther down the road as we start to have multiple assets in place that we use over and over. So multiple year surviving assets. As we showed on one of the earlier charts, kind of the overall architecture, there are concepts in place. The first Artemis landing, Artemis 3, will be somewhat limited. So our astronauts will be walking around the lander, conducting research in the nearby terrain, bringing samples back from a place we've never been to before. But after that, the plans are to have an increased mobility capability, the Lunar Terrain Vehicle, that would have the ability, depending on what we get back from our community that ends up winning the bid, an ability to move away from a single central location, maybe drive to future landing spots. So we can start to extend the presence that we have. We can go to different locations or drive away a little bit farther than we were at the beginning. Now, there are additional concepts I mentioned that are in pre-formulation. So eventually we want to get to the point of having habitable volumes on the surface of the moon. Now, they may be stationary, they may be mobile, but that puts our astronauts in a position where instead of staying in a spacesuit while they do all of the work on the surface and returning to that lander, they actually have that environment that they can go survive on the surface. So you kind of have to think about what we actually have in development, the RFPs that have gone out, and then extend your vision a little bit about what we might put on the surface. And some of that will depend on how our objectives evolve and what we're learning about the lunar surface. Where do we want to go? I showed that first slide just of the moon, right? What is it that we want to do there? Do we want to be more mobile? Do we want to be anchored in a single location doing very detailed studies? Some combination of both. But the base camp is basically a concept where we consolidate multiple assets that are going to survive over multiple years so that we can start to reuse the things that are there.
Thanks very much, Jake. All right, Brad, turning the spotlight back to you. We have seen the CLIPS missions carry more mass and capability than allowed under the PRISM calls. Will it be an option in upcoming PRISM calls to expand the mass, power, lifetime, etc. capability offered to the proposer?
That's a good question, and I might ask Joel to follow up what I'm sure I'm going to miss. But clearly Eclipse has a lot of interest in not just performing science, but also ensuring that we're standing up a valuable lunar economy overall. And so in that vein, we are not aiming to be in the entire customer on a particular delivery. We wanted to have enough payload or mass capacity available left over to the vendor that they can then go out and sell and solicit for other instruments or payloads or opportunities from the broader community, not only domestic but also international. And so it is our current philosophy that we don't want to be the sole customer for any particular delivery. Now, that said, if there was a valuable science need or requirement that would necessitate, taking up the entire capacity of, what we consider to be a typical 100-kilogram lander, which is what a lot of the vendors seem to, kind of be honing in on as an overall size for their initial offerings. Then we could possibly entertain that. But I don't know, Joel, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I'd add that part of the charter of CLIPS, which is part of the Lunar Discovery and Exploration Program, is to transport equipment and demonstrations from Space Technology, Exploration Systems Mission Director, and Space Ops Mission Directorate to the surface of the moon, in addition to our scientific investigations and our instrument suites that we compete under PRISM. In addition, one of the things, so there's always going to be things other than the PRISM instrument suites from NASA that go down on particular Eclipse delivery missions, and we have to reserve the capability to do that. In addition to that, as Brad said, because we want to encourage the Eclipse providers to have businesses of bringing being able to bring equipment reliably to the surface, to the moon on this regular cadence every year, we encourage them to go off and get non-NASA customers in addition to the NASA customers that NASA identifies under the CLIPS project. So we look, Barbara, I would say we look prism by prism at what the resource availability is and target should be for the types of investigations that we're soliciting under that particular PRISM solicitation. So you're probably going to see them change as we go from PRISM 2, PRISM 3, PRISM 4, PRISM 5, not just because the capabilities of the vendors are going to mature over that time, but also because the sophistication of the questions that the community wants to propose will probably become more complex as time goes on.
Great. Thank you, Joel, and thank you, Brad. All right, that brings us to the end of our question time. There were a couple other questions in the chat, so if you have a chance, panelists, please take a look and answer what you can in the chat.